Welcome back to Hannity. The wait is finally over. Ann Coulter's brand new book is finally out in bookstores today. It's on Amazon.com. It's called Adios America, The Left's Plan to Turn Our Country into a Third World Hellhole. Here she is, author, bestseller, Ann Coulter. You know, I will tell you this, and people that dismiss you are wrong. They don't read your books, because if they did, this is extraordinarily well researched. This is a much bigger issue than the southern border, northern border.
Right.
And you go into great detail. The cost is enormous, and we have two parties that don't want to solve the problem. Otherwise, the fence that works at the White House and in gated communities, as you point out, would be built.
Right. Not only that, there would be a change to the legal immigration. That was the point I was making with you on radio today. This is so much bigger than, other than the first chapter. My book is about legal immigration. The Somalis leaving to fight with ISIS. Those are legal immigrants. The Hmong immigrants raping little girls. Those are legal immigrants. The immigrants going on welfare at rates far above the native rate, committing crimes at what appears to be far above the native rate. The government won't tell us. Never has a country been transformed like this. Never in world history. And it is being done as an express plan by the left because they want voters more favorable to liberal policies. It's striking how all of the most avid immigration activists, and there are hundreds, probably thousands of groups just working overtime to bring in the poorest of the poor to live in America. They're always the people who don't particularly like America. They call us racist, sexist, homophobic. Why are they bringing these poor third worlders here? It's because they want to transform America, because they hate America, and Republicans aren't stopping them because the big donors want the cheap labor.
In other words, corporate America. All right. You're saying that this is really important, that we have no scrutiny of the people that we allow into this country.
Right.
And that is as big a problem as the southern border, where somebody wants a job and ISIS has the ability to walk across at will.
Yes, and the shocking part that I found out, which is why this book became this book, I wasn't going to write a book about immigration. I was going to have a few chapters on immigration, and I'd already written 2 chapters for the book I was planning on writing. Then I go to look up, some basic obvious facts that most Americans will be shocked the government refuses to tell us, like how many foreign-born are in our prisons, how many are in state prison, how many are in federal prison, and what crimes are they in for, and what countries do they come from. Oh, no. Read Chapter 7, and you will see it was written through tears of frustration and rage. That was when I called my publisher and said, this is going to be a different book. You can't believe what I'm finding here. The way they hide the information, for example, counting both legal and illegal immigrants in federal prison, only illegal immigrants in state prison. Well, that's where most prisoners are. Mexicans for most years are counted as white. But I eventually have to go to the ancillary facts. Of course, they do not count naturalized citizens at all. Well, isn't that worse? I mean, it's one thing for the government to miss criminals who are running across the border. That's bad enough. How about the ones the government looked over and said, you'll make a fine addition to this country, and then, they're blowing up the Boston Marathon. It doesn't occur to Americans that we have any control over this. This is being done to your country. It is government policy. This is not a natural result of the way people would immigrate. First world countries, developed countries, countries where the immigrants do not go on welfare and commit crimes, they are specifically being discriminated against. So we can drag in all of the poorest of the poor to instantly go on welfare. You will be called racist for this. Well, book. As I say, that's the only argument they have.
All right,
they prefer not to debate me at all, but if they have to, they'll call me a racist.
Do you really believe that this is a thought-out plan where America as we know it will be forever altered and never be the same?
Oh, absolutely.
Explain what you mean by that.
I just hope we are not already past the tipping point, but I wouldn't have written this book if I thought we were past the tipping point. We need immediate action. We need an absolute immigration moratorium, mostly just to shut these immigration groups down, because as I go through toward the end, coming up with solutions, you would think you could just pass a law saying, if you're a criminal, you go home, and we will prosecute marriage frauds, and we will prosecute people who lie about needing refugee status. Well,
you know what country does this? Australia.
Well, all of these laws have been passed in the United States. They all get ignored, overturned. The INS says we're not going to do it. A federal judge says we're not going to do it. You have industry capture where the immigration judges come from the exact same anti-American immigration groups. They're running the immigration system. You need an absolute moratorium. You need a fence around the border. You need to end
Gates
this.
Work?
No, apparently yes, buckets work too, and wheels work.
Yeah.
That's breaking news. We need to end the insane policy of anchor babies, illegal aliens running across the border or arriving, flying in from China and staying in immigration hotels, giving birth specifically to get American citizenship. By the way, those kids, when they commit crimes and go to prison, they are not counted as immigrants in prison.
Stay right there. We're going to come back. Her new book, Adios America, The Left's Plan to Turn Our Country into a Third World Hellhole. We'll continue with Ann Coulter, but when we come back, she will go head-to-head with a pro-immigration supporter in what is sure to be a very heated debate. That and much more coming up next. Straight ahead. Welcome back to Hannity and her brand new book, Adios America, The Left's Plan to Turn Our Country into a Third World Hellhole. Ann Coulter reveals through her research some very shocking statistics about problems this country faces because of illegal immigration. That's right, immigration. Ann Coulter's here with us and here to challenge her on some of the claims in the book. We have immigration attorney Francisco Hernandez. Have you read the book, sir?
I have read bits and pieces. I have not had the pleasure.
It's out today. In fairness to you, I doubt Ann sent you an autographed first edition, but like I got
I'll take one, though.
You just heard her lay out her case. We have people that come into this country, don't have any real desire to be Americans. We don't have any background or scrutiny, and that's on top of two borders that are wide open that anybody can cross pretty much. It includes drugs, and I've been in drug warehouses and sex slavery and other crimes, and you know, why do we have this openness? Why would we not control the people that come into this country and vet them first?
Well, I don't disagree with you on that. Why don't we control it? Of course we have to control it. But Mr. Hannity, Ms. Coulter, I'm not ready to throw in the towel on America. America is still the single most powerful country in this world. People are literally dying to come here. What do you mean they don't want to be American? Of course they want to be American. That's where they're leaving their corrupt governments and their unemployment and their disease and their famine to come here because, you know what, here we got the opportunity. Why do we have to be so negative? Statistics, she throws out all these statistics. Listen, I think she's a fine person. Everything I've heard about her personally.
Ann, you want to respond?
Well, sure, but we're using the drugs.
I mean,
we are creating the market. The drugs come because we're buying them.
Well, we could build a fence.
Stop using, they won't come.
Look, the fact that people want to come here, great. You know, I'd like to live in the Coke's mansion. That doesn't mean they have to let me move in.
But we can work to get that mansion.
Hang on.
Americans seem not to understand that we should have some control over this. There are trillions of people who want to move to America. Are we going to take them all? We can't take them all. The boat will. Hey,
they would already be here if they were that easy.
You got to stop mumbling throughout everything I say. It's very irritating. There are trillions of poor people in the world. There shouldn't be an advantage. Why are we discriminating in favor of those who happen to live within walking distance? There are poor people in Bangladesh. They've got cholera. They're suffering. Are we going to take all of them? No, we're going to discriminate against them. In fact, the gate will shut.
No.
Will shut down. Still talking. The gate will shut the moment every wealthy person, at least who went to one of the better schools, has a full complement of chefs, nannies, gardeners. As soon as that's done, suddenly the humanitarian crisis of the world will be over. But the point is, an immigration policy, a country's immigration policy, is not an international charity project. Immigration is to make this country and the people in this country, including recent immigrants, better. And if one immigrant commits a crime, that's one too many. If one immigrant goes on welfare, that's one too many. And in fact, they are committing crimes and going on welfare far above the native rate, making America a much worse place to live for everyone.
All right, Francisco?
Undocumented immigrants do not get welfare. They don't even get
that's false. That's a lie. That's an absolute lie. That's an absolute lie. They get all kinds of welfare. In fact, illegal immigrants get more welfare, I'm glad to say, than legal immigrants, which is sort of shocking considering the legal immigrants our government is letting in.
Oh, my goodness.
They will get
more
welfare when they are citizens.
Take a rate of their unemployment rate. They're all working at jobs you and I won't do. You won't get up on a roof.
There are 93 million Americans out of Francisco. 93 million Americans out of the labor force.
No, the point is they are working at jobs
this summer.
Some of them, yes, are very hard workers, and they are also accessing the welfare system to send half of that money back. Still talking. It's really annoying when you mumble over everything I say. All this little mumbling in the background.
I'm taking a cue from you.
Yes, they are working, but they also are accessing welfare. So the rich get a fantastic deal. They have the middle class and the working class subsidizing their cheap labor. But not that many people can afford maids, nannies, chauffeurs, chefs, or are running farms and need all this cheap labor. That is costing the American taxpayer. And the idea that you can dump 30, 40, 50 million of the poorest of the poor on America, accepting government assistance, and somehow that is good for the country, is so contrary to common sense that it's not a surprise you are the only pro-mass immigration advocate who would come on with me, and I do compliment you for that.
All right, last word, Francisco, real quick.
Well, listen, I'm for anybody getting a piece of the American pie that's willing to earn it. But are you saying that all of these people that come here are criminals? I mean, are you saying that we ought to raise the minimum wage?
No,
Ms.
obviously
Coulter,
I didn't. We shouldn't have we don't need to raise the minimum wage if we just stop bringing in low-wage workers.
Immigration is dictated by economics. If the jobs
it is
are there,
not dictated by economics. Fox viewers, that is a lie. This is dictated by government policy to help the Democrats and help the rich get cheap labor. This is not economics.
But the
it is government policy
Neither
that can
side
be
wants
changed.
to touch it.
We got to end it there. Thank you both.
Both sides need to do it.
Ann's final thoughts. She'll stay with us when we come back.
If you go to the end of the line. Okay. Why don't you go to the end of the line?
Wow. Hillary Clinton giving the brush off to a voter who simply was asking to take a little picture with the presidential candidate. Still with us, Ann Coulter, author of the brand new book, Adios America, The Left's Plan to Turn Our Country into a Third World Hellhole. By the way, what is that? She's the champion of the little people?
I just want to say it's a perfect example of what they're doing to our country. They're waiting for old white people to die off. As you will see from the quotes in my book, The Browning of America, big celebration.
You say browning and people say racist. I said to you on my radio show.
That's what MSNBC says. They celebrate it every night. Do you watch MSNBC? Do you read any of the liberal publications? They are, well, they're quoted in my book. They are celebrating, ha ha ha, we're browning America. And then Republicans will never win another election, and they're right.
I read that every day. But you're blaming both Republicans and Democrats,
yes.
though. And the Democrats,
yes.
They want a voting base that they think will keep them in power forever, and the Republicans want cheap labor.
Absolutely. And, in fact, the title is a little bit deceptive. We just needed to name somebody, and I couldn't list all the people who are working to turn this country into a third world hellhole.
The Republicans funded executive amnesty.
Yes, they did. Yes, they did. And, I mean, it's a hard case to win when the entire people carrying the water on this argument are three bloggers and sometimes you. I mean, if Matt Drudge ever goes on vacation, that's it. Amnesty's going through when the country is finished.
Yeah, well, I've been down to the border 10 times. I've seen the drug warehouses, the tunnels, and
to go back to Francisco, I do want to compliment him for at least coming on. I want to know where Frank Sherry is, big immigration activist. I will debate him anytime on your show this summer. How about Ali Noor?
They're welcome.
Noorani. They'll go on TV without someone to contest them. And as for welfare, just one point from my book, the 1996 welfare reform bill forbade immigrants from accessing welfare for their first 5 years here. Most Americans said that's not already the law. That was the single biggest savings of that welfare law, and within 5 years it was repealed.
All right. Adios America in bookstores everywhere and on Amazon.com. Ann, thank you.
Thank you.
Appreciate it. That's all the time we have left this evening.
Hello, my friends. I'm Dennis Prager, and I have a woman. I'm going to say positive things about her, so she can leave the phone right now if she'd like, or she can listen. But you should all listen, because I have dealt with all the great thinkers right now in America, and it's been one of the joys of my life. She is a first-class mind. She's brilliant, and people listen to me 33 years, some 3 years, some 3 months, but I never say. I have nothing to gain from this except to tell you that this is a fact. You read her books, and you realize the depth of her thinking and the depth of her scholarship. There are more pages of notes in her latest book, Adios America, than there are in almost any book written from the other side on similar subjects. And that cough belongs to Ann Coulter. So, Ann, welcome back to my show.
Oh, I am so happy to be here. I've been dying for you to read this book.
I am. And so is your favorite woman.
Excellent.
Yes. By the way, folks, you have to. I'm just so open on the radio. Do you know how I get to? You know how I get to communicate with Ann? I tell my wife to send her an email. Then there's an immediate response. If I send Ann Coulter an email, it's all right, it's Dennis. Yeah, next week. But Sue, 3 a.m. I got a response.
That's true.
I know it's true. It's not a joke.
Well, at least you have that little pathway.
Yes, that's right. No, and I use it, I might add. Absolutely. Ann Coulter's latest book is a major bestseller, as it should be. I have so many questions to ask her. It's called Adios America, the left's plan to turn our country into a third world hellhole. See, now, here is an example. I want to be totally open. This is an example. I'm not saying it's wrong, but I'm not. But this is an example of how the folks who don't agree with Ann Coulter dismiss her. He says, I'm on the left. I want to turn America into a third world hellhole. I won't read her book. So that's what happens, because they'll take a sort of over-the-top statement and say, that's it. There's no depth here. Now, not that even if it would have said, an epistemological and teleological look at immigration through the eyes of the matrix of sociology and anthropology, they still wouldn't read it. I just want to make that clear. But, but am I right,
though?
Well,
the one thing that's incorrect about the title, and this was the hardest part of the title, are the words in the subtitle, the left. Because I kept trying to come up with a way to just say the plan, but everyone told me no, you need the subject here. You got to have something that's doing it. It can't just be the plan. And as you know from reading the book, it's not limited to the left, though. I will credit them for pioneering the idea. But to list all of the people involved in this vast conspiracy would have taken up actually all the pages of the book. Marco Rubio, the Republican Party, the Chamber of Commerce, Mitch McConnell, and on and on and on. Oh, the greedy churches who want the taxpayer benefits. The only people who are against turning America into a third world hellhole are the American people.
Yeah. That's the point. It is both right and left. Big business is as big a culprit, and I say on my show, probably on a weekly basis,
yes,
that the great myth is that big business is conservative.
Yes, I know. If people notice that, Obama got the largest haul from Wall Street in world history, and no, these guys, they don't care if the country goes to pot. They'll have their pile.
Well, a lot of people don't care if it goes to pot. That's the tragedy, because people live for the moment. All right, let's get to your book, Adios America. It is about the problem of immigration. You deal with so many issues in here that are never dealt with. I'll give you an example, folks, of something that is so significant and almost never noted. People, you always hear polls say Americans are for amnesty, or Americans are for this or for that. You give an example in your book of the phoniness of the way in which polls, I don't want to steal your thunder, so I have your words in front of me, but if you can say it, go right ahead. How the polls are constructed in a false manner.
Yes, they provide the menu, and you're not allowed to choose anything off. No, sorry, refer back to the menu. And I went to two of the more honest polls on, quote, immigration reform or amnesty, and that is from the Brookings Institute and from the Wall Street Journal. But I looked at a whole slew of them. I just gave those two. Actually, there were three examples. The California field poll was one of the more on the dishonest side, but they're all dishonest. On one side, you have the false option of only some illegal aliens being offered a pathway to legalization after they jump through all these hoops and pay all kinds of taxes and fines, and they learn English and take civics lessons. Well, that's not in any proposal. It has never happened before. We've been through this We've been through this in the past. All of those requirements will be waived, and far from paying taxes, any path to legalization means the illegals get money back, as they are getting under Obama's executive amnesty. And that portion of the book was written long before the executive amnesty.
Well, let me give an example that you give. Listen to this, my dear listeners. A Brookings Institution poll asked respondents to choose between, this is from Ann Coulter, 2 ways to solve the illegal immigration problem. This was what the poll was. Ready? Choice 1, arrest and deport all those who are here illegally.
That's the other side.
Choice 2, provide an earned path to citizenship. So, as you point out, that's an absurdity, since this is Ann Coulter's words. Absolutely no one has proposed that we deport all those who are here illegally, much less arrest them.
Yeah, it's always the other side of the equation is always rounding up grandmothers and children at gunpoint.
Yes.
Dragging them out of the country in the dead of night. And as I point out, I mean, no politician, no piece of legislation has suggested rounding them up and deporting them. The toughest proposal of any politician has been Mitt Romney's self-deport. Hey, why don't we enforce E-Verify to protect American jobs, and then illegal aliens will go home the same way they came.
Right. By the way, what's wrong with that?
No, it's a very compassionate solution. And, I mean, the hysteria on the left, it was a good phrase, self-deport, because as a regular viewer of MSNBC, they went mental over it, and they couldn't really say what was wrong with it. But liberals have this irritating habit of just repeating something and sneering at it over and over again, so that I guess, easily suggestible people end up thinking, oh, that was a terrible thing to say. And I'm convinced they could do this to the words apple pie. Oh, did you hear Mitt Romney? He said apple pie. And then everybody on the panel was
You're right. That's a very good point. You're right. If you sneer at a word enough, it becomes obnoxious.
Yeah,
right.
Self-deport. I mean, it might be a little wonky.
So right now,
way to put it is go home the way they came.
You mentioned E-Verify. All right, explain to people what that is and why isn't it being enforced?
Yeah, that's a good question. Eva, thank you. I hate when I slip and engage in insider lingo. None of this should be insider lingo, but since the media refuses to talk about immigration, it's this fabulously successful federal program, very simple. It takes about 60 seconds. You can check the Social Security number of any employee, and it has, a 99% accuracy rate, which is somewhat amazing for a government program, but it's a computer system, so it was set up properly. And you can confirm that the person you are about to employ or you would like to employ is a legal immigrant or a United States citizen. And in the few cases when it's wrong, you're allowed to go ahead and employ the person while there's a double check on it. Why isn't this employed? Because employers want the cheap labor. Every time these things start to be enforced, you have the lobbyists going to the Republicans and saying, oh, the crops are going to rot in the fields. And suddenly, oh, let's not implement it yet.
All right, we'll be back in a moment. The book... it's the terrific combination of utterly accessible reading and an immense amount of scholarship. Now, if you'd like to challenge Ann Coulter or clarify anything on the immigration issue, 1-8-PRAGER-776, 877-243-7776. The book is Adios America, and it is up at DennisPrager.com. Hi, everybody. You're listening to the Dennis Prager Show. I'm speaking with Ann Coulter, whose book is Adios America, and anyone who cares about this country, left or right for that matter, should read this book. And it is up at DennisPrager.com. She has written 10 New York Times bestsellers, and this is and should be and should continue to be one of them. It's filled with information and, of course, her unique wit. You make a point that if I may say, I have been making for years, and it drives me crazy that people don't realize that is the issue. The issue has nothing to do with color, has nothing to do with ethnicity. It has everything to do with values. And in the case of the case of Europe, everybody acknowledges there is a values problem.
Yes.
Because vast numbers of Muslims are coming, bringing values often that are quite different from those of the Western world.
Yes, and I'd say even continental Europe doesn't share the values of America. This is an incredibly unique and fabulous country for women, for children, for minorities. I mean, it's been funny watching this. I don't know how you say it because you know how much I love soccer. I think it's FIFA. Is that what they call it? FIFA?
Yeah,
The big soccer scandal. The American media seems to think, American culture is so corrupt because, I don't know, the NFL commissioner doesn't resign when some football player hits his girlfriend.
Right, or a guy deflated the football. That was the big scandal, yeah.
Look at what is happening with this soccer organization. 100% not Americans. Oh, except, sorry, there was one American citizen who's half Mexican, and he goes around bragging about it.
No, but that's the point, folks. You see, they bring the Latin American, most of the time, brings into the United States Latin American values. Now, I have been to most Latin American countries. That's a lot of countries. It's a lot of trips to South and Central America.
That's a lot of countries.
Yes, and I love the place, and I love the people. I have to balance that with, it's like the Pope. The Pope is one of the nicest human beings that has ever held that office. That's a great comparison. Yes, but he brings Latin American values. So he doesn't believe in capitalism and has said so. And his big thing this year is not the deaths of Christian communities in the Middle East. It's climate change.
Yeah.
So please. I wrote a thing, and then you keep speaking. I feel funny with having you on and speaking because I just want to hear you.
I'm loving this.
Well,
I'm hearing myself.
All right, fair enough. So okay. Well, I'm not tired of hearing you, but the point is, I wrote an open letter to Hispanics years ago in my column that week, and one of the things I said is, why would you want to rebuild a country on the values you fled from?
Yes. Well, I'm quite sure a lot of them don't, particularly, and I describe some of these cases, the rape cultures that followed Latin American women here. They thought they were getting away from the rape epidemics in their countries. No, not if we're just transplanting 1/4 of Mexico to America, and 1/4 of Mexico has already, at an absolute minimum, that's the Pew and the Census Bureau's estimate, 1/4 of Mexico has already moved to America. And not only, I mean, it's great you wrote that open letter, but you're up against our entire politically correct culture, which not only says we will no longer ask immigrants to assimilate to our culture, but it's actually a hate crime to ask them to assimilate. So
yes.
add all that together. But, back even when we were asking immigrants to assimilate, and immigrants coming from not particularly different cultures, and immigrants who were insisting on learning English, they probably weren't all that happy about it. But, wow, it was a different country they were coming to. Now, thanks to what leftists have done to this country in the schools and through the politically correct culture, we are bringing in people, the poorest of the poor of the world, from the most corrupt cultures in the world, and don't dare suggest they learn American history or even learn English.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I want to get back for a moment. Why isn't E-Verify used more and enforced more?
I'm telling you, I didn't go into a lot of details on this, but I've looked this up: English language requirements, civics lessons, back taxes, a lot. Prosecution for marriage frauds, prosecution for refugee frauds, building a fence on the border. Congress will often pass laws. Or when I was working with the Senate Judiciary Committee, for example, if you're an immigrant and commit an aggravated crime, you're convicted of it in this country, you get it appealed, it's upheld. Sorry, you're a guest in the country, you have to go home. Then there were also the welfare provisions back in 1996. where immigrants to this country wouldn't be allowed to access most of the welfare programs for the first 5 years they were here. You know, most people hear that and say, that's not already the law? We're letting people come here and immediately be supported by the taxpayer? Within a matter of years, all of these things get overturned by immigration judges, by the INS just issuing a ruling, by Congress when lobbyists gang up and say, like I say, crops are going to rot in the fields. You have to, don't make us apply E-Verify. Don't punish the businesses. In fact, even Rick Santorum, who's sounding pretty good now, on immigration, he was always opposed to expanding the use of E-Verify. There are a few little, pilot programs here and there, but it's basically voluntary. And his argument, as Ted Cruz's argument is, businessmen came to them and said, oh, this is a terrible burden for us. We can't spend 30 seconds running this E-Verify check. And so Republicans give into it, and of course Democrats aren't. This is the one 30-second business regulation that costs businesses nothing, that even the Democrats don't want to impose on business in America.
So if you were president, what would you do vis-a-vis illegal immigration generally, and what would you do vis-a-vis E-Verify?
Well, definitely 100% enforce E-Verify. Absolutely, we need a fence on the border. It's got to be as difficult to get into the United States as it was to get out of East Germany. We have to end the nonsense of the anchor baby policy where Chinese are flying in, staying at fabulous hotels, then claiming indigency and having American taxpayers pay for them to give birth on American soil so that their children will have all the benefits of American citizenship, and they will if they want. Also, illegal aliens who happen to live within walking distance. They come across, drop a baby on American soil, and American citizenship is a game of Red Rover with the Border Patrol. It's utter madness. There's no sense in talking about what to do with illegal aliens until we have an absolutely secure fence. We've ended the anchor baby policy. And my suggestion after writing this book, it wasn't my idea going in, I'd like to be able to still get the good immigrants, but looking at all of the anti-American mass immigration groups, and that's an important point. They are
all right, hold on with that point because I want to restate the name of the book. Adios America, Ann Coulter. I'll take calls as well. You're listening to The Dennis Prager Show.
Come on, baby, turn around. Let me see your pretty blue eyes. Don't you know that I love...
Hi, everybody. You're listening to The Dennis Prager Show. I have another compliment for Ann Coulter, so... Ann, if you need to get a cup of coffee, go right ahead.
I'd never leave at that moment.
That was a great answer. She's not only brilliant, and her scholarship is impeccable, but she has, and every one of my listeners, I would say 98% of my listeners know exactly what I'm about to say. What is the rarest of all the good traits, my friends? There are many bright people, there are many kind people, but there are very few courageous people. Courage is the rarest of the good qualities, and you have that.
Thank you. That is the most important one because none of the others mean anything.
Wow, it's exactly the words that I use. It's eerie. That's exactly correct. All the goodness in the world doesn't amount to a hill of beans without courage.
Yeah, I learned that in college from my Rome of the Caesars professor, and it struck me when he said it. He had us all go around the room and name the most important qualities, and then said, "You're all wrong. It's courage." And
is that right?
It's stuck with me ever since. Yes.
You learned some wisdom at college.
Yeah, isn't that weird?
I know. I'm
from
shaking.
Two professors.
Yeah. What college was it?
It was at Cornell, and my mentor at Cornell, Jeremy Rapkin, was so relieved when he heard me prattling about Professor Bernstein one time, because he said he was so relieved. He thought everyone would blame me on him. But Elvis Bernstein apparently was involved.
That's great. Right. Rapkin's child, Ann Coulter. That is so funny. That's a great one. All right, so we're talking obviously about immigration. The problem, like any subject in this country, if you want to talk about Ferguson, if you want to talk about affirmative action, and you don't take the left's position, you're a racist. If you don't take the left's position on immigration, you're a racist, you're a xenophobe. It's very difficult to have debates with people. Although you did, didn't you? You were on Univision, weren't you?
Well, I love that, Jorge Ramos. Like I told everyone, I finally found a Mexican willing to do a job no American will do. They won't interview me, Dennis. This is going to be probably my first book tour with zero mainstream media. They are pretending I do not exist, because although they will call you a racist for being on the wrong side of immigration, they would really prefer just not to discuss it. They don't want people to think about it. And for example, the issues you just named, what was it, Ferguson, gay marriage, or the Iraq War.
Affirmative action, yeah.
Affirmative action. All those, most of your listeners probably have opinions on it. They've thought about it. It's like I was saying before, that's on the menu of options presented by the media and the culture. They do not want immigration to even be something people think about. They get mad when Americans find out about immigration.
What do you think most animates the left on this? Is it I want to feel good about myself? And because there's no question that there is, in their minds, some degree of sincerity, of idealism. We want to, the liberal churches, we want to love the stranger. That's what we're told to in the Bible. There's no question there is that element, and there's the element of self-esteem.
You're more generous than I am. I think the churches are purely greedy. I'll even give them liberals more credit than the churches, the liberal churches that are bringing all these, blind 17 children, disabled, the hardest cases of the world to our shores. I think they just want the tax money, and they want to be admired for what good people they are.
Well, all right, that was a big part of what I said, the self-esteem aspect. Yes.
Self-esteem. Yes,
so it is big. But what about?
To the extent I could put a happy face on it, and to some extent conservatives too on this. They think liberal policies are going to be good for the country. Americans, no, we're not going to check with them. They treat us like children. It's like putting a child to bed when he's screaming and crying. Okay, you're going to hate me now, but in an hour you're going to be asleep. And they just think, well, once we finish with dumping third worlders on the country, we will have absolute complete control, as we do in California, and then we will be able to bring utopia. And Americans may not know that this is what they'd like, but wait till they see liberalism in action.
Yeah. Now, what about the element of political gain, that these will be future Democratic voters? I want to get your answer to that when we come back. We shall return with Ann Coulter in a moment. All right, everybody. Dennis Prager here with Ann Coulter discussing her book, Adios America. The ignoring of you by the New York Times, Washington Post, LA Times, NBC, ABC, CBS, if that is what they call a smoking gun. No, it is. No. Let's be honest. Here's the irony. Fox News and all of these places, they have the authors on of books they don't agree with.
No, that's right.
There is no parallel in the conservative universe of the hermetically sealed world of the left.
Though even a lot of the conservative media aren't wild about this immigration topic.
Yes, so let me ask you about that. It's one of these things I don't have an answer to, because I don't believe the Wall Street Journal is pro-big business in a reflexive manner. They attack big business regularly. So tell me, why is the editorial page of the Wall Street Journal a page that I adore? Why is that page
so bad
on this issue?
So bad. I am not sure. I don't know them personally, or I might be able to give you a better psychological profile. But in general, I think there are a few possibilities. One is you get, at least with a lot of rich people, I know the second to last chapter of the book I wrote after I turned in the book, literally when I came home from a dinner with a bunch of very conservative billionaires, and they all love their country, and they were such idiots politically, that I wrote a chapter just as a placeholder. I was calling it, I wrote this chapter when I realized how stupid rich people are. And then as we were going to press, I thought, I actually kind of like that title. We're going to stick with that. And it's partially an echo chamber. I've noticed this about, and this isn't specifically, obviously, or even at all, about Wall Street Journal, but I'll get to them. I've noticed this about very rich people. They're good at one thing, a very important thing, making money. I wish I were good at that. And consequently, they can often consider themselves experts on everything. You also have the problem of who is advising them. How is it that people like Orrin Hatch and Arlen Specter end up running for president, which both of them did? Powerful and rich people are surrounded by yes men, and the yes men have to worry about what they're doing next. I mean, we always talk about how congressmen and senators want to get a good gig with the Chamber of Commerce when they're done with public service. But really, any congressman or senator can get a job. Their staffers can't get a job that easily. They need a landing place where they can make money. And pretty much all of the advisors, consultants, whether it's to rich people, politicians, they're all singing from the same hymnal about, we have to reach out to the Hispanic vote, have to get the Hispanic vote. You know, as I point out in the book, and Byron York was the first one to run the numbers on this, if Mitt Romney had gotten, I think it's 3 or 4% more of the white vote, he would have won. If he had gotten 71% of the Hispanic vote, something, no Republican has done in world history, he still would have lost. It's as if Republicans have conned Democrats into devoting all their efforts to winning over a slightly larger pie of evangelicals.
I gotcha. Okay. Let's take some calls now, as I promised my listeners. Palm Desert, California. Ron. Hi, Ron. Dennis Prager with Ann Coulter.
Hi, Ms. Prager. And Ms. Coulter, thank you so much for writing this book. I haven't read it yet, but I'm a Border Patrol agent, and from what I've heard so far, I could tell you've done your research.
Well, thank you for what you do. We're hoping to make your job easier with a fence.
Political environment, but I have a lot of points. I hope you at least let me get to a couple of them. When she says that if there's an amnesty giving, she's correct. They will not enforce any of the requirements. We already have people that I run into regularly who are naturalized citizens who knew very little English. They still live as though they're from, the previous country that they came from. They don't really care about our history. So if you rush through another several million, 20 million at one time, they will. They will waive all the requirements and just give out citizenship as though it means nothing.
All right. I know you have many points to make. We don't have many minutes. Any comments?
Well, yes, and to back up what he's saying, we've done this before. There was an amnesty under Reagan in 1986. All those requirements were waived. I have a paragraph going through each one of the requirements. And I looked up, I originally was going to put this in the book, I may put it in a column. I looked up an op-ed piece in the New York Times by Chuck Schumer and all the promises he was making about that amnesty. He was a representative then. And it's with only slight variations, exactly what Marco Rubio has been saying for the last 3 years about this most recent amnesty. No, we always get the same promises, but, how many times do we have to be betrayed? How many times are we going to play Lucy with the football?
Okay. Diane, Chicago, Illinois. Hi.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thanks.
And I was in one of your Kramnik classes. It's been a while. But I am calling because in Chicago, where I live, and I guess it must happen around the country, my stepmother is a school teacher, and they have specifically a school in Chicago for unwed mothers, ages, 12 and up. And she said, 70% of the 11 and 12 and 13-year-olds have come directly from Mexico. And she asked a few of the families, my God in heaven, how is it that these 11, 12, and 13-year-old little girls are all pregnant when they come here? And they said, well, we have a family friend, you know, have relationship with our daughter, and then we're so proud to come to America so we can be Americans. And Ann, in your book, when you talk about criminals in American jails who've emigrated here, you know, courtesy of America's administration, these creatures that call themselves parents and that say that they believe in religion, if you have your daughter raped, the two of you and everyone listening, you know what should happen to those quote-unquote parents.
Yes. Thank you for the report from the ground. I mean, I looked up a lot of this in 32 of the 33 states of Mexico. I think that number's right, certainly all but one. The age of consent for sex for a girl is 12 years old.
Wow, wow. The book is Adios America. The author is Ann Coulter. I'm Dennis Prager. It's too bad. It's the final segment here with Ann Coulter. Adios America is her book, and it's filled with data that are, of course, presented in the inimitable Ann Coulter interesting manner. So
that last call was amazing.
Well, I'll tell you that was, but your statistic.
That's a huge portion of my book. It's about the child rape cultures coming into this country.
But they're charging there's a rape culture at colleges. It's this is a perfect example of Prager's rule number 14 of life. You'll love it. Those who don't fight evil hate those who do. Yeah. And those who don't fight real evils make up little evils.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes, yes. No, that's why I concentrated. I mean, there are a lot of shocking things about
this 32 states issue. Could you repeat that? Because I was, to use the vernacular, blown away.
In 32 states of the 33 of Mexico, the age of consent for sex is 12. In several, I think it's Brazil and Peru, 15% or more of all pregnancies are to girls aged 14 or younger. It's only 2% in the United States, and of that 2% in that age group, Hispanic girls are 7 times more likely to get pregnant than white girls in America are. And I have quotes from cops in America who have said, look, we can't even prosecute these cases anymore. I'll get a call from the hospital. They'll say, I've got a 12-year-old Mexican immigrant here. She's giving birth, and the father is 40 years old. And the policeman will go to the little girl's home expecting the parents to want to string the guy up. And just like Diane just said, the parents will say, oh, it's wonderful, it's a blessing.
Very quickly, I'm going to just go through some calls here from around the country. In Indiana, Katie wants to know if you have data on how much money is being sent out by U.S. immigrants, in the U.S.?
Yes, I do. I'm glad you asked. To Mexico alone, from Mexicans or Mexican immigrants, $20 billion a year. That is more. That is a cost of immigration we are never told about when they calculate, all the great economic benefits.
Well, it's yes, that's right. And I don't blame these people, but I think we have to be honest.
It's not helping the American economy.
Right. That's exactly right. One final word. We have 30 seconds. I heard you speak about this, and I could say it, and nobody could accuse me of having a vested interest. And I'd like to talk to you about this another time. The blessing that the white Anglo-Saxon Protestant gave to the world by creating the United States. And I'm a Jew, so I can say it, and they don't say I have an axe to grind. It is a very important point that nobody's allowed to make. She makes those points about everything. Adios, America. Thank you, Ann.
Thank you, Dennis. And hello to your wife.